Good afternoon and welcome to CompanyRoots. Today, we're interviewing Mr. Stephen Lamb, the co-founder and chief operating officer of ZBiotics, the world's first maker of genetically engineered probiotics. ZBiotics looks to help people face the diets and environments of modern life.
ZBiotics has also been featured on Forbes, Business Insider, and TechCrunch. It is a privilege, and we are truly honored to interview you today. My name is Raul Kaboru. I'm a junior at St. Paul School in New Hampshire, and I'm the president of CompanyRoots.
My name is Sri Shafti. I'm a freshman at the Wharton School, and I'm from Homedale, New Jersey, and I'm the founder of CompanyRoots. The first question that we always ask is, what are your company roots, and how do they help you in shaping your ideas and becoming the person you are today?
That's a good question. Well, it's wonderful to be here, and thank you for having me. The company roots that probably shaped me the most are literal roots to a certain degree. Grew up with a family that farms in Southern California. We grow avocados and lemons, and so my first job coming out of college was working on the farm and working with my uncle and getting a sense of family business life and what agricultural life is like. And from there, moved to Brazil and then worked in corporate real estate doing essentially new market entry across Latin America for companies like Unilever and brands like Ben and Jerry's, who wanted to come in and launch in Brazil and some of the countries around there. So between those two things, that's where my roots lie.
So how did you go from working on a farm to working in corporate real estate?
I wanted to live abroad in Brazil. I was down there, and it turned out corporate real estate was a place that I'd interned in LA over a summer during college. And I gave them a call and was just like, how can I get down there? Right when the BRICS block of countries is really hot. The Olympics and the World Cup had just been announced. So Brazil was kind of, just going crazy. And I already spoke Spanish. And so I figured I could probably pick up Portuguese and, just found a job that would take me down there. And it turned out to actually be a really great job.
Yeah. And of course, ZBiotics is also another completely different space. So for viewers who might not know too much about your work, can you please briefly explain what you do in ZBiotics?
Sure. At ZBiotics, we make genetically engineered probiotics, which is we essentially take probiotic bacteria, which are good bacteria you can eat, and then we use genetic engineering to make them do something new and functional for your body. It's something that you already eat, but we add a new function to it, and that function is helpful and useful. So, for example, our first product, which launched in August 2019, is a probiotic we engineered to break down one of the byproducts of alcohol. And it's the byproduct of alcohol that makes you feel so crummy the day after drinking, and is also just kind of a heavy load on your body. And the idea is you eat this probiotic, and as it's passing through you, it's producing an enzyme having a function of breaking down this particular byproduct.
So how did you guys come up with the idea to, I guess, relieve the hangover?
Yeah, I mean, it's I'd say the biggest question that kind of sparked ZBiotics was working with microbes in a way that was more consumer friendly and advanced than anything that was on the market before. And by that, I mean, the technology that we use has been around for years in the pharmaceutical industry and in academia, has been used to create biologics and used by researchers. But, there's quite a few functionalities that are kind of augmentative that have never been applied to the consumer world, right? The entire kind of supplement nutraceutical space exists just because people take products that are on the shelf and they try to find uses for them, mix them together, put them into a bottle, and hope they have a good effect. But we can design and engineer specific functionalities into nutraceutical products that are just more scientifically valid, more advanced, and ideally, this is where the entire industry goes. And in a few years just by using technology, frankly, we've been working with for decades at this point.
Wow.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And on your website, there seems to be like several different uses that your drinks can come in use for. So what would you say is like a few of the best situations that ZBiotics really helps it with?
Yeah, so for this particular, the first product, and I'll say that because we are rolling out new products shortly, and so we'll have more news on that later. But for this first product, the idea is you drink it when right before you go out drinking. That could be drinking when you're enjoying a glass of wine at home at night or whatever it is, and then it is passing through your gut, and it passes out, within the span of 24 to 48 hours later. But as it's doing that, it's breaking down this particular byproduct, and that's making you feel better the day after. So it's really focused on a specific use case, alcohol, and giving your body an extra function that it didn't have previously.
Yeah. And does the drink taste good?
It tastes okay. I wouldn't say it tastes great, but it doesn't taste bad, and that's part of the reason for the drink is obviously the functionality of the probiotic, which is why most people are interested in it. So we wanted to really highlight that. We didn't add hardly any other ingredients. The flavoring that we did add to give it some kind of taste, so it doesn't just taste like dirty bath water, which is essentially what the probiotic would taste like along with water. But yeah, outside of that, we don't use any kind of like a lot of supplements and things use like vitamin B complex ingredients, and those are really they taste terrible. So you've got to mask it with a lot of sugar, a lot of flavor, and we don't need to do that because it's a very simple, straightforward product.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, like the bad taste doesn't steer away any customer. I mean, not having a bad taste doesn't steer customers away, but like also with your drink, there's a bunch of benefits along with that.
Exactly. Yeah. So all the benefits, the benefit that we added to the product for sure is clearly like the primary benefit, but there's also just the general probiotic benefit you would get from any probiotic drink, and so that also gets incorporated into people's choice as to when to take the product.
Yeah.
Right.
So for ZBiotics as a company, are you guys focused on just taking this product and making it as big as possible? Or is it kind of like a organization to get a lot of different things in genetic engineering and make it like consumer focused?
Yeah. So, our mission as a company is essentially to create genetically engineered products that improve people's lives and to give people the power to use those products on their terms, which is why we are a transparently GMO company. We're proud of that fact. We talk about that, which is not what a lot of other companies do, even if they use synthetic biology or genetic engineering in making their products. And we believe firmly that in the future, like every probiotic is going to be engineered. So in the future, every probiotic should be a ZBiotic. And our goal is to build a category of genetically engineered microbes that are doing work on your behalf, right? And that they're products that are transparent. Each one has a function, and is all kind of safe and scientifically valid in the way you'd want to, really build a category.
Right. And of course, ZBiotics is one of the first companies in this industry. So a couple years after, a while after your organization has been created, what would you say like the current competition is like in the space, and how has ZBiotics continued to remain established within the industry?
Yeah. So I'd say, right now, just because we launched so recently, the competition has yet to like catch up, so to speak, which is only to say that like when we launched, we were the first ever genetically engineered probiotic on the market.
Yeah.
In any part of the world. And now that we've kind of shown that that's something that is valuable, interesting to customers, that customers are willing to kind of take a transparently GMO product in exchange for a direct benefit to them, we expect to see more. We have seen a couple kind of just on the fringes, people who are working on it and other scientists in our network who've started companies along these same lines.
Yeah.
But nobody else has come out with a product like this yet. I would say, the technology broadly is being used by a few pharmaceutical companies, but they're targeting, major health problems, drug indications, and those are companies like Synlogic or Intrexon, and they're working, just very different very different focus, very different approach from what we are.
Yeah. And I guess away from the science side, you're the chief operating officer, which means you're the one who has the business skills and everything. So what do you do in ZBiotics and what unique skills and ideas do you bring to the team?
Yeah. So, I mean, I do a fair amount. I'd say, the biggest things that are kind of official to my role, which, I'm also a co-founder of the company, so end up doing a bunch of different things aside. But, uh, you know, as far as COO goes, the supply chain is a big deal for us. Actually producing a pure probiotic bacteria that is live, that's going into a bottle, right? That is a pure genetic strain, is a big, expensive, you know, long-term process.
Yeah.
You go through years of process development, you go through years of testing, so managing that supply chain, especially in the face of COVID, for example, which, our manufacturers in general, like the biotech space, manufacturing has taken a hit because everybody is moving their production to COVID vaccine work, which is obviously like way more important than what we do. But dealing with that and working through materials and things, that's something that I do. And then the regulatory piece is a big one. We're FDA regulated as a product, so making sure that we're compliant and safe and everything there. And then just internal operations, right? We have a whole team, and I need to make sure everything's kind of smoothly that way.
Right. And I noticed another one of your tasks is also taking part in the lab notes on the website, which discuss health and genetic engineering in a very, very presentable way. So how do you go about telling these certain ideas and facts to the average person who might not know too much about the industry?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something we talk and think about a lot. And, our communication, I think, will continue to evolve because one thing we do care about is making sure that what we present is understandable, and that's understandable on people's own terms. So a lot of our writing, what we present on the website and how we like to talk, ideally is not over people's heads. And so, that's where having kind of empathy towards the fact that like the concepts that we're working with, the technology we're working with is complicated, unfamiliar, possibly scary to some people, and that there are really good reasons for why people respond that way. So, we probably overwrite to a degree. Our blog pieces and things are not short. But we also know that, the people who really care and really want to dig in, they want to know as much information as possible. So we try to be respectful in the language that we use to not talk over anybody's heads, and in general, try to provide as much information as possible to people, so they can make an informed decision about whether or not they want to buy the product.
Right. Yeah. So you also graduated from UPenn with a JD and an MBA from Wharton in entrepreneurial management and OID. So as a recent grad, how has this education helped you kind of make the transition to ZBiotics?
Oh, it's been great. I'd say, the dual JD MBA track / program has just been literally helpful in the sense that a lot of what I do tends to fall around contracting and working through regulatory compliance in manufacturing, and in just the release of the product over the last couple of years, IP, right? So like a legal education has been really useful in that sense. And then on the the business school side, just getting exposure to both people and kind of processes that provide, I would say, like a target to shoot for, right? Like business school is not super, directed towards entrepreneurial management as like a real serious field of like, they're not going to teach you how to be a founder. That's kind of up to you, which, at least in the grad program, that might be changing, but, for knowing kind of what best practices are and like what things to focus on longer term, and then just the broader strategy of things there, it's been really helpful.
Right. Yeah. So you currently work with Zach Abbott and John Oliver, who are two scientists with PhDs. So what is your team's previous experiences and abilities add to the company culture?
On the science side, well, I'd say we are a science company first, which just means, Zach, uh, my co-founder, he created the technology in the first instance. Like he was the inventor who had the idea, brought it to, created a prototype, spent a year in the lab on his own, just developing things. And so like was the root of the company. He was, had a lab in Berkeley, lived in Sacramento, so would come in and would sleep in the lab, so he could keep his assays running. And like, that's always been kind of where we've started. And so we have an R&D team, team, John leads that, and he leads future product development. And so, even though like ostensibly you could look at us and just be like, well, this is a consumer products company, R&D is at the heart of everything we do. So, it comes with an exceptional respect for the science, probably an overemphasis on like accuracy and transparency around how we build things, and how we talk about them in our marketing. It influences everything.
That's awesome.
Right.
So your website also says ZBiotics is recruiting. So what skills are you looking for in your team? And do you intend to hire scientists, business students, or people who just want to learn and grow with your company?
Yeah. I mean, we look for, there are a few things we look for kind of first and foremost, but one of them is an interest and a passion for the mission, which is just to say we are a mission-driven company. None of us are here just for a paycheck. We strongly believe in kind of the potential of the technology to help the world long term. And so that's what we're working towards. And, a startup is hectic and can be crazy at times. And so, somebody who's willing to roll with the punches and, really kind of be here for the long term is going to be somebody who really is invested in that mission. And as far as particular skills go, we'll be hiring for R&D, and we have been hiring for marketing, just growing the team out, as kind of, as you do. But the big really looking for are that investment, and I'd say probably a level of independent thinking, which is only to say that like what we do is relatively unusual, and it kind of takes an independent thinking person to say like, oh, okay, I'm going to be able to come in and contribute in a way that's really valuable, as opposed to just like using a playbook from a past job, which may or may not work with this type of product or this type of company.
Yeah, definitely. Our last question is always, what advice would you give to the current generation of students that would like to start the process of making a positive impact on society or making a complete unique product? And how would you recommend they start the process? It's a tough question.
I think one thing I very strongly believe is that, nothing comes from nowhere, which is just to say like pure creativity where you pull something out of a hat and it's not based on anything just doesn't really happen, right? Like everything's informed by your experience.
Yeah.
And people do kind of just a generally like crummy job of recognizing how the experiences they have had, are extremely valuable and can be learned from long after they've had them. So I would think about it that way. I would think like, look at your current experience, look at what you're doing. Everything's a learning opportunity. Everything is an opportunity to like learn how to do something better, how to pull some new insight out of things. And frankly, if you look at the history of invention, right, like it's all built on that. Right? Like nobody just sits down and says like, I'm going to invent something. It all comes out of like past work. So
Definitely.
Get passionate about the work you're doing, that things that you do in school that like, you can, if there's something that piques your interest, dive into it, learn more, because that's where it's going to come from.
Got it.
Right.